2,000 years ago, the mighty Roman Empire blazed with unrivaled power, its emperors wielding iron fists that shaped destinies and shattered dreams. Armies thundered across continents, their boots echoing with raw might as kingdoms rose in glory and crumbled in despair. Strength was a god, conquest a sacred hymn sung in blood and honor. Mercy, a whisper dismissed as weakness. The poor languished in shadows, forgotten. Enemies weren't forgiven. They were crushed beneath Rome's relentless heel. Yet in a small province at the empire's edge, a single life would shape history more than all its rulers combined. His name was Jesus of Nazareth. But who was he? A wise teacher? A prophet? Or truly the Son of God? The evidence comes not only from the Gospels, but from history itself, from Roman scribes, Jewish witnesses, and the unstoppable movement that followed. This is his story, 7 to 2 BC. In the quiet hush of a starlit night, amid the humble glow of divine sign, the world welcomed the miraculous arrival of Jesus to the Virgin Mary and Joseph, a beacon of divine promise heralded by angelic songs. Wise Magi bearing 3 gifts of love, gold represented Jesus' kingship, frankincense symbolized his divinity and priestly role, and myrrh acknowledged his humanity, future suffering, death, and burial. These precious and sacred items demonstrated the Magi's recognition of Jesus' divine nature and destined earthly role. Matthew 2:2 states the Magi saw his star in the east, or at its rising, and followed it to Jerusalem, then Bethlehem, where it stood over the house where Jesus was. The star's movement and precise guidance suggest it was not a fixed star like Polaris, which remains nearly stationary in the northern sky, serving as a navigational constant rather than a dynamic sign. Chinese and Korean astronomical records document a comet or nova-like object in 5 to 4 BC, potentially visible in the Middle East. The 7 BC Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is well documented in Babylonian star catalogs and can be reconstructed using modern software, showing 3 alignments in May, September, and December 7 BC. First century Church of the Nativity marks the traditional site of birth. Skeptics argue these are theological stories crafted to fit prophecy. Yet one thing is certain: Jesus was born during the reign of Herod, in a land crushed under Roman taxation and yearning for salvation. From his first breath, expectations surrounded him, and so did jealousy. 4 to 2 BC, fleeing the shadow of Herod's ruthless wrath and the heartbreaking slaughter of innocents, Mary, Joseph, and the infant Jesus embarked on a perilous journey to Egypt's refuge, only to return with hopeful hearts to the serene village of Nazareth once the tyrant's grip loosened in death. 2 BC to AD 8. Amid the simple joys and daily toils of a carpenter's home, young Jesus blossomed in wisdom and grace, his tender years filled with quiet devotion and familial love that foreshadowed his extraordinary destiny. First century Nazareth excavations reveal a small Jewish village with homes and mikvahs, ritual baths, supporting a humble upbringing. The Gospels give us only glimpses of his youth. In the sacred halls of Jerusalem's temple during the vibrant Passover feast, a precocious 12-year-old Jesus captivated elders with his profound insights, leaving his anxious parents in awe as he declared it his Father's house, igniting sparks of divine purpose. Then, silence. For nearly 2 decades, he lived an ordinary life, working with his hands, learning obedience, preparing quietly, until the time came. 28 to 29 AD. At the flowing waters of the Jordan, Jesus, stepping into his destined role around age 30, was immersed by his fervent cousin John, evoking a breathtaking moment where the heavens parted, the Spirit descended like a gentle dove, and a voice thundered with, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Alone in the stark, unforgiving Judean desert, Jesus endured a grueling 40-day fast, facing down the cunning temptations of Satan with unyielding resolve and scriptural strength, emerging victorious in a profound test of faith that steeled his spirit for the trials ahead. The temptation of physical need. The temptation. After 40 days of fasting, Jesus was hungry, and the devil suggested he turn stones into bread to feed himself. Jesus' response, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." The temptation to test God. The temptation. The devil took Jesus to the highest point of the temple in Jerusalem and urged him to throw himself down, claiming that God's angels would catch him. Jesus' response, "It is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." The temptation of worldly power. The temptation. The devil took Jesus to a high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world, and offered them to him if Jesus would bow down and worship the devil. Jesus' response, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." The Sermon on the Mount changed everything. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Love your enemies. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Jesus teaches about the importance of self-examination before judging others, using the metaphor of removing the speck from a brother's eye and the beam from one's own Rome-glorified power. The world respected strength, but Jesus lifted up the meek, the merciful, the peacemakers. His teachings weren't mere philosophy, they were revolutionary morality. Compare him to Socrates, who pursued wisdom, to Confucius, who sought order, to Buddha, who preached detachment. All profound voices, but none claim what Jesus claimed, to speak directly with God's authority. Calling of the first disciples. Jesus went along the shores of Lake Galilee. Seeing Simon Peter, Andrew, James, and John fishing, he called them to discipleship. Jesus said, "Come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." 28 to 30 AD, everywhere he went, miracles followed. With compassion that touched the broken and authority that silenced storms, Jesus healed the afflicted, like Peter's fevered mother-in-law, cast out tormenting demons. The blind saw, the lame walked, lepers were touched, not shunned, the hungry were fed from a few loaves and fish. Storms obeyed his voice. Even the dead were raised. Lazarus brought back after 4 days in the tomb. He proclaimed the exhilarating kingdom of God. Critics argue exaggeration, claiming impossibility. Yet the Gospels written from witness testimonies name those healed. They lived among the people, and the sheer number of witnesses, crowds numbering thousands, recorded by their faith, which at the time could have cost their lives. Making dismissal difficult, his miracles revealed more than power. They revealed love for the suffering, for the outcast, for the least of these. High upon the rugged crest of a mountain, where the winds whispered ancient secrets and the earth touched the heavens, Jesus led Peter, James, and John into a moment where time itself seemed to pause. There, in the hush of sacred solitude, his countenance was transformed, his face shining as the sun, and his raiment became white as the light. Matthew 17:2. Radiant with a glory that pierced the veil between earth and eternity. Behold, Moses and Elijah, pillars of the law and the prophets, appeared in splendor, communing with him in a vision that stirred the souls of the trembling disciples, their hearts ablaze with awe and holy fear. And lo, a voice thundered from a luminous cloud that enveloped them, proclaiming, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him." Matthew 17:5. The disciples fell upon their faces, trembling before the radiance of their Lord, until Jesus, with tender compassion, touched them, saying, "Arise and be not afraid." In that fleeting encounter, they glimpsed the eternal King, their hearts forever marked by a vision of glory that would sustain them through the shadows of the cross yet to come. Two powerful miracles, feeding the multitudes and walking on water, serve as profound revelations of Christ's divine nature in his boundless compassion. When Jesus fed 5,000 men with just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, he demonstrated God's provision and care for the physical needs of his people. He said, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry." John 6:35. This miracle not only provided nourishment, but pointed to the deeper truth that only Christ can satisfy the hunger of the soul. Similarly, when Jesus walked on water to reach his disciples, he revealed his sovereignty over creation and his ability to calm the storms of our lives. As he approached them in the midst of the storm, he reassured them, "Take courage, it is I." Don't be afraid, Matthew 14:27. These acts were not just displays of power, they were invitations to trust in the one who controls all things, both seen and unseen. The triumphal entry into Jerusalem marks a pivotal moment in Jesus' earthly ministry, one that fulfills ancient prophecy and reveals his kingship in a way the world had never imagined. As Jesus entered the city riding on a humble donkey, the crowds erupted in jubilant praise, shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest heaven!" Matthew 21:9. This moment was not only a public declaration of Jesus as the Messiah, but also the fulfillment of Zechariah's prophecy. "Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey." Zechariah 9:9. In this act, Jesus turned the expectations of a conquering political king upside down, choosing to enter not on a war horse, but with humility and peace. He came not to overthrow the Roman Empire, but to confront the spiritual darkness that had long held God's people captive. 30 to 33 AD, the Last Supper shared between Jesus and his disciples on the eve of his crucifixion is a moment of profound intimacy and revelation. As they gathered to celebrate the Passover, Jesus transformed the meal into a sacred institution that would forever shape Christian worship. He broke the bread and said, "This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." 1 Corinthians 11:24. Then he took the cup, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you." Luke 22:20. In these simple yet powerful words, Jesus redefined the meaning of the Passover meal, now symbolizing not just deliverance from slavery in Egypt, but the ultimate deliverance from sin through his own sacrifice. The breaking of bread and the sharing of the cup were not only acts of fellowship, but also prophetic signs pointing to his body that would be broken and his blood that would be shed for the salvation of the world. The betrayal of Judas Iscariot stands as one of the darkest moments in the gospel narrative, a tragic contrast to the selfless love and loyalty Jesus embodied throughout his ministry. In the quiet of the Garden of Gethsemane, Judas, one of Jesus' own disciples, chose to betray his teacher for 30 pieces of silver, the price of a slave, Matthew 26:15. As Jesus, fully aware of what was to come, said to him, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" The weight of his treachery became painfully clear. This act of betrayal, marked by an intimate gesture of affection, was a fulfillment of Jesus' earlier words. "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me," Matthew 26:23. Judas, blinded by greed, disillusionment, or a combination of both, made a decision that would forever define his legacy. The trial, crucifixion, and death of Jesus form the most harrowing and heart-stirring chapter of the gospel story. A collision of injustice, violence, and unimaginable love. Dragged through the night from one mockery of a trial to another, Jesus stood silent before his accusers, beaten, spat upon, and falsely condemned. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Isaiah 53:7. The crowd that once shouted, "Hosanna," now cried out, "Crucify him," as Pilate, washing his hands, handed over the innocent Son of God to be executed like a criminal. Forced to carry his own cross through the streets of Jerusalem, Jesus was nailed to rough wood on a hill called Golgotha. As soldiers gambled for his clothes and passers-by mocked him, he hung between two thieves, bloodied, broken, and yet still speaking words of mercy. "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Luke 23:34. Darkness fell over the land. With a loud cry, he breathed his last. "It is finished." John 19:30. In that moment, the earth shook, the temple curtain tore in two, and a Roman centurion declared, "Surely this man was the Son of God." What looked like defeat was, in truth, the greatest act of love the world has ever seen. Jesus, giving everything so we might live. After Jesus' body was placed in the tomb, the religious leaders, fearing that his disciples might steal the body and claim he had risen, went to Pilate with a request that would seal the tomb with Roman authority. "Give the order for the tomb to be made secure until the third day." Otherwise, his disciples may come and steal the body. Pilate, perhaps in an effort to quell any rumors, gave the order to seal the stone and posted a guard at the entrance. The massive stone was rolled into place, and soldiers stood watch over the tomb, ensuring that no one could tamper with the body. In this moment, all human effort seemed to be against the idea of a resurrection. The tomb was guarded, the stone was sealed, and the authorities believed they had taken every precaution to prevent what they feared most. But even in this act of defiance against what Jesus had proclaimed, there was an irony that would soon unfold. No human force, no seal, no guard could stop the power of God from doing what it had planned. The guards, despite their vigilance, would soon find themselves powerless in the face of the miraculous. The tomb would not hold the risen Christ. The resurrection of Jesus is the pinnacle of the Christian story, a moment that transforms despair into hope and death into life. Early on the third day, when the stone was rolled away from the tomb, the earth itself seemed to tremble with the power of God's triumph over death. The angel's words to the women who came to mourn, "He is not here. He has risen just as he said," were an announcement that would echo throughout history. Jesus, who had been crucified and buried, was alive, defeating the grave and all its power. In the days that followed, Jesus appeared to his disciples in a series of intimate encounters. He walked with two disciples on the road to Emmaus, their eyes opened to him only when he broke the bread. He appeared to Thomas, showing him his wounds and declaring, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Each appearance shattered doubt and ignited a fire of faith. These post-resurrection moments were more than just comforting. They were a commissioning, as Jesus instructed his followers to go and make disciples of all nations. The resurrection was the beginning of something new, a world forever changed, with death no longer having the final say, and a Savior who conquered it all, alive forevermore. Jesus is not only a figure of faith, history remembers him, with many times the evidence for Jesus compared to figures such as Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, Hannibal, and Spartacus. The Great Pyramid has almost no evidence of how it was constructed, yet we believe the textbooks based on tools found miles away that can barely cut the stones over months to years. A clay seal with Khufu's cartouche, royal name, was found within the pyramid structure, directly attributing the project to him. But putting one clay seal in the structure means they built it? History is filled with leaps of faith, but when it comes to Jesus, there is a lot of evidence for his existence and claims. The Gospels were written after the fact by eyewitnesses. Josephus, a Jewish historian, described him as a wise man, a doer of wonderful deeds, condemned under Pilate. Doer meaning worker or man of action. Tacitus, a Roman historian, recorded, Christus, who suffered under Pontius Pilate during the reign of Tiberius, gave rise to the pernicious superstition that spread through Rome. Pliny the Younger, a Roman governor, wrote to Emperor Trajan about Christians who worship Christ as to a god. Suetonius noted disturbances in Rome caused by followers of Christus. Pilate declared, "I find no fault in him." Yet the crowd cried, "Crucify him." These were not believers. They had no reason to promote Jesus. Yet even Rome admitted he lived, he was crucified, and his movement shook the empire. Witnesses of resurrection, Mary Magdalene saw him first. At dawn, weeping outside the tomb, she mistook him for a gardener, until he spoke her name. The disciples saw him too. Thomas, doubting, touched his wounds and fell to his knees, crying, "My Lord and my God." Paul, once a persecutor, later wrote that Jesus appeared to more than 500 people at once, most of whom were still alive when Paul wrote, "Open to questioning." These were not nameless rumors. They were personal testimonies, witnesses willing to suffer for what they had seen. Skeptics claimed theft or hallucination, but the body was guarded. Fearful disciples do not invent a resurrection, then willingly die to defend it. Peter was crucified upside down in Rome. Andrew was executed on an X-shaped cross. James, the brother of John, was beheaded in Jerusalem. Thomas carried the message as far as India before being speared to death. All but one of the apostles died as martyrs, not for power, not for wealth, but for the truth they proclaimed, that Jesus was alive. Their testimony was echoed by the early church fathers. Clement of Rome, writing in the 1st century, declared, "Because of the love they had for Christ, they endured even torments." Ignatius of Antioch, on his way to martyrdom in the arena, wrote, "It is Jesus Christ who died for us, that believing in his death you might escape death." Polycarp, disciple of John, faced execution by fire. Asked to deny Christ, he answered, 86 years I have served him, and he has done me no wrong. How can I blaspheme my king who saved me?" Such devotion is not built on myth. It is built on conviction, born of encounter. Some say Jesus was only a teacher, like Buddha or Confucius, but none of them claimed to be God. None forgave sins as if they had the authority. None promised to conquer death, and then did. C.S. Lewis put it clearly, "A man who said the things Jesus said is either a liar, a lunatic, or the Lord." That's a 20th century opinion. Bring it back 2,000 years. Claims of divinity without conviction or proof would have most certainly resulted in immediate death. Yet Jesus spread his message for decades before being persecuted. History does not remember him as mad. His followers did not call him a fraud. They worshipped him even into death. From fishermen to emperors, from Jerusalem to the ends of the earth, his influence endures. Hospitals and universities were born from his teachings. Human rights, mercy, forgiveness, values rooted in his words. Billions today still follow his messages, even those lacking faith. Empires fell, Rome crumbled, but the name of Jesus remains. History proves Jesus lived. Roman records confirm his death. Witnesses swore he rose, and his teachings, more radical, more compassionate, more transformative than any in history, changed the world. If he were only a man, the story would have ended at the cross, but it did not. Even for those who question his divinity, one truth is undeniable. The moral fabric of our world has been profoundly shaped by the teachings of Jesus. The idea that every human life holds equal value. The call to love one's neighbor as oneself. The radical forgiveness of enemies where vengeance once ruled. Compassion for the poor, dignity for the oppressed, hope for the broken. Hospitals, charities, and schools grew from these principles. The very concepts of mercy, human rights, and social justice trace back to his words on a Galilean hillside. 2,000 years later, our laws, our ethics, even our daily assumptions about kindness and fairness carry the imprint of his teaching. Whether one calls him teacher, prophet, or son of God, the life of Jesus of Nazareth did not simply change history. It changed what it means to be human. And that is why, across centuries and nations, millions declare, Jesus of Nazareth was not just a teacher, not just a prophet. He is the Son of God. We travel through time on Chrono-Legacies. Remember that history isn't behind us. It's happening right now. Every moment we live writes a new chapter in humanity's epic story. If this episode ignited your passion for the past, smash that subscribe button, give us a like, and drop a comment to tell us what you loved or what historical tale you want Chrono-Legacies to explore next. Stay curious, and let's keep uncovering the stories that shape our world together. Thanks for watching.